Today we shall be talking about OPC, one person company. Now suppose you want to start a business venture, you have to decide that what sort of business structure you want to go in. You can run a sole proprietorship, it can be a partnership firm, limited liability partnership LLP, or a private company, and so on. But if you want to start the business all alone, you want to keep the control in everything in your hands, then you just had one choice, that of being a sole proprietorship. You can very well enter into the business in the form of sole proprietorship. But there used to be a very big disadvantage in the case of sole proprietorship, that it had unlimited liability. Now, what is the meaning of unlimited liability? If the business goes insolvent, then what will the creditors do? The creditors can very well attach your personal assets to pay off their dues, to recover their dues. All your personal house, your personal assets, they can be used for the same. But this disadvantage was waived off in one person company. The Companies Act 2013 introduced OPC, called one person company. In this form of business format, one person, a single person, can run a company. So apart from sole proprietorship, if you want to run your business all alone, there exists a new choice of OPC. See, in the case of private limited company, you need two people to form a company. But now, one person can form a company, and that thing is called OPC. That one person, he will be the single member of the company. So now the OPC enjoys the benefits of both forms of business. It enjoys the advantages of sole proprietorship. What is the advantage of sole proprietorship? That one person is running the business. It is his control. It is his decision. Whichever way he wants to take the company to, he can. So he doesn't have to take the consent of any other partner or to look upon any other partner to take a decision. It is his single-minded decision. Okay. So this is the advantage of sole proprietorship which the OPC enjoys. Apart from that, OPC also enjoys the benefits of a company. What is that? A company, it has a limited liability. The members of the company have limited liability. Supposingly, you have purchased the shares of 1000 rupees of a company. So, you are liable to pay only 1000 to the company. If the company goes insolvent, the creditors will not come to your house to recover their dues. Similarly is the case of one person company. Even if only one person is running the business, still he has the protection of limited liability. The creditors, they cannot attach his personal assets to recover their dues. Therefore, I say OPC enjoys the benefits of both forms of business. Further, OPC also saves the hassles of search of correct type of co-partners to start a business. You don't have to wander in search of your like-minded partners to run into a partnership firm. You have a business idea, you want to run a business, go ahead with one person company. So it is very simple. Next, OPC is a separate legal entity from its promoter. Just as a joint stock company is a separate legal person, the members and the company are not the same, they are different. Similarly, in OPC is different and the promoter is different. Here I can use the term promoter, the shareholder, the owner, all mean the same thing because it is only one person. OPC offers limited liability protection to its sole shareholder, just I explained you in the previous slide. There is an advantage of continuity of the business. If the sole promoter dies, sole owner dies, still the company will go on, and detail of this line I will mention in the slides to follow. So the business will continue on and on even if the person dies. And OPC is very easy to incorporate. There are no hassles. There is no bulky steps to be followed. It's very simple. OPC opens the path for startups in the country. Previously, if a person want to begin a business, he used to go his parents that kindly fund my business, I want to run my own venture. So they were a little hesitant. Why were they hesitant? Because sole proprietorship had unlimited liability. The parents knew it very well that in case the business did not work, what will happen? Their personal assets will be attached to pay to the creditors. So one person company is giving this big protection that the liability is limited. Therefore, more and more startups can come up in the country. The parents will be giving unhesitantly, they will be giving nod, they will be giving the green signal to the youth to come and into the business of one person company. So OPC is an example of vital growth. It's very important for the vital growth of the corporate sector of the country. Next. What are the advantages of OPC? First of all, it is a single person ownership. Very simple. One person has to do all the decisions. He has to do all the purchases. He has to see all the sales, all the decisions, all the directions. He only has to give. So there is no hassle of two persons. Further, it is separate legal entity, just as I told you. Just like a company is a separate person and the members are separate person, similarly in OPC also, the OPC is separate from its single member. OPC and the person who is running the OPC, they both are separate. Further, there is limited liability. If the liability is limited, the personal assets are safe. Sole proprietorship has unlimited liability. Partnership firm also has unlimited liability. So the personal assets of the member will never be used to pay off the debts. Further, there is minimum compliance, very less compliance as compared to opening of a private limited company. There is no hassle of paperwork, very limited documents are required to form a OPC. Further, it gets easy funding and loans because it has the name company. So the banks and financial institutions, they always prefer to give loan to a company rather than a person. Again, it has a perpetual status. The life of OPC continues even if the owner or the member dies. When we talk about sole proprietorship, if the sole proprietor dies or he gets incapable, the business firm comes to a closure. But in the case of one person company, if the sole owner dies or the sole owner becomes incapable, OPC will not die. OPC will continue. Okay. Further, the creditors, they can sue only the company to get their dues. The creditors, they cannot sue the director. The creditors, they cannot sue the member to recover the company's debt. I think this is the biggest advantage of one person company, that the creditors, they can just file a case against the company. They cannot sue the owner because he is having limited liability. There is no need to hold any annual general meeting for an OPC. There is no need to hold an extraordinary general meeting. All these compliances are there for joint stock companies. Now, OPC needs to hold the board meeting only once in 6 months. Very simple. The annual return of OPC, it can be signed by a director. There is no need to get it signed by a company secretary. The registration process of OPC is very easy and there is an online process to register your OPC. The director and the shareholder, they can be same person in the OPC. If the shareholder thinks that he only will be the director, it is very good, he can be the director. But he wants technical expertise. He wants the brains of other persons, so he can hire and he can keep more directors. But the owner has only to be one because that is the first criteria to run an OPC. It is a one person company. Now, the exit route, if you want to leave this OPC, you are not happy with this, very simple, very easy. You can easily come out of OPC also. You can transfer the share certificate, you can resign from the director post. So it is very easy to come out of OPC. It is not that once you are bound, you are bound. No, it's not like that. You can easily come out. You can buy any movable property in the name of OPC. You can buy any immovable property also, land, building, any automobile. You can buy anything in the name of OPC. And when you will be exiting this one person company, the same property which you had purchased, it can be easily sold off, it can be easily transferred. There are no complex formalities. Next, minimum capital of OPC. The minimum capital of one person company is 1 lakh. So you have 1 lakh, you can begin an OPC. But if the paid up capital exceeds 50 lakhs, you have to compulsory convert this OPC to a private limited company. So once your capital goes to the extent of exceeding 50 lakhs, it is compulsory, it is mandatory to convert your OPC to a private limited company. Next. See, now there are two conditions mentioned on your slide. If the average turnover in the 3 consecutive years exceeds 2 crores, turnover, you understand, a sale, if it exceeds 2 crores in the consecutive 3 years, one condition. And the second condition is that the paid up share capital exceeds 50 lakhs, just as I told you in the previous slide. If either of these two conditions are crossed, then you have to convert your OPC to a private limited company within the duration of 6 months. So if these two conditions are crossed, it is mandatory to convert it into a private company. Next point is the voluntary conversion. If the member himself wants to convert into a private company, then You do it. You can voluntarily convert it. But then you have to wait for 2 years from the date of incorporation. This voluntary conversion can be done only after 2 years, not before that. The question arises, why will the member voluntarily want to convert into OPC? When we are giving you so many advantages of OPC, why will you like to convert into private company? This is because if the member thinks that he needs more capital, because in OPC, the paid up capital limit is 50 lakhs. So if he thinks that his business needs more capital, he needs more shareholders, then he is feel free to convert into private company. OPC cannot have more than one shareholder. So if you want to exceed it, one shareholder, you want to add on more shareholders, you have to convert. If the member thinks that the business needs expansion, in the interest of the business, you need to expand the business in the terms of capital, you need to expand the number of shareholders, you can voluntarily and very easily convert your OPC into a private company. Next. Now the question is, who can form an OPC? Any natural person, I, you, we people, one person can form an OPC. But an artificial person cannot form it. The company is an artificial person in the eyes of law. Company cannot form an OPC. Further, the person should not be a minor. You have to be more than 18 years of age. You have to be an Indian citizen to form an OPC. The fourth point is, you have to be an Indian resident also. Non-resident Indian cannot form an OPC. Now, OPC will have one owner, that is one member. This is the prime condition. But you can appoint the director. If you want technical experience and you want to hire directors, you can appoint the directors. But the number of directors, maximum number you can appoint is 15. Not more than 15 directors can be appointed in OPC. But if the owner wants that I only will be the director, I don't need any other director, then it is very good. You can be the owner and you can be the director also. No problem. Next. Now, the nominee to OPC. See, if the member dies or he becomes incapable, then the situation is very critical. Therefore, there is a compulsory provision to appoint a nominee of one-person company. The nominee has to be appointed. The nominee can be your relative, he can be your friend or any XYZ person. You can appoint a nominee. But the condition is that person, he should be ready to be a nominee of your OPC. Okay. Now, one person can form only one OPC. And if you have formed one OPC, you cannot form another OPC. For example, I have formed one OPC, very good. Right? Now, I want to form another OPC, it's not possible. Because one person can form only one OPC. One OPC can have only one member. Clear? Therefore, one person can form only one OPC. And one person can be nominee in one OPC only. If supposingly I have formed an OPC, very good, and I make you as the nominee. If you are a nominee, then you cannot be a nominee in any other OPC. So you can be nominee only in one OPC. Because if you are nominee in more than one OPC, then there will be two members, right? So see, there are three things. First of all, one person can form one OPC. One person cannot form another OPC. Third point is, one person can be a nominee in one OPC, that's all. One person cannot be nominee in two OPCs. Clear? Next. Now, to declare the nominee is a very prime condition. You have to declare a nominee. So, legal heir cannot be a nominee. Supposingly, I have two sons. They are my legal heirs. But if I say that one of them will become the nominee, no, it doesn't function like that. You have to mention the name of the nominee and legal heirs. They can be more than one. So there can be two sons. And then once I die, that both will fight who will be the nominee of the OPC. So legal heir is a separate issue and declaration of nominee is a separate issue which is compulsory for an OPC. Because once I die, then OPC will have two nominees, both the sons. It is not possible. OPC runs on one single member. Therefore, I have to appoint one person as a nominee. He can be my son, my daughter, my relative, my friend, anybody. But only one nominee. I have to declare a nominee and that too only one nominee. Now, further, there is a provision to change the nominee. If I am not happy with the name of the nominee I previously decided, I can very well easily change the nominee. I just have to inform ROC, Register of Companies. I have to take the consent of the new nominee and then I can change the name of the old nominee. The nominee will have no role in OPC until I am alive and capable to conduct the business. Once I die, the owner dies or the owner becomes incapable, only then the nominee will come into action. If the nominee is coming into action during my lifetime, then the purpose of OPC is not defined, right? Because OPC is going to have only one member. Then if the nominee also comes as a member, it is not possible. So the action, the role of nominee will open up, will bloom up only when I will die, when I will become incapable, only then the nominee comes into action. Now, once that nominee comes into action, then it is his sole wish what he wants to do. He wants to continue the business, he can continue the business. He wants to shut the company, he can shut the company, but his decision will be valid and the decision will be legal only when I die, not before that. Next slide. Steps for the incorporation of OPC. There are very simple, very basic, no hassles are kept, and the minimum compliance has been called for. So the first step is to obtain the digital signature certificate, also called DSC. You have to provide your address proof, your mobile number, your PAN card number, your Aadhaar number. These PAN card, Aadhaar card, everywhere, wherever you go, you have to mention these numbers. So very simple, you have to obtain the digital signature certificate. After that, you have to obtain the DIN, the director's identification number. You have to apply for the DIN at the ROC site. You already have these two documents, then you can continue with those, then no need to obtain new ones. Then the third point is you have to obtain the name approval application. You have to have the name of OPC which nobody else have. You cannot repeat somebody else's name. So it's better you think of 3 or 4 names in advance. Maybe the name is already existing, then you cannot keep that name. Check for the name availability at moc.govt.in. If the name is available, you can file an application for the same to the ROC. Online it can be filed. Once you get the name approval letter, you have to submit these online documents. What else? Like the memorandum of association you have to submit, and the articles of association also you have to submit along with it. Now ROC will be monitoring